Psychology is a science, and it's all thanks to the field of learning. What does learning mean to a psychologist? Stay tuned. When you think of learning, you probably think of a student sitting in a classroom. While that is one type of learning, in psychology, when we talk about the field of learning, we're talking about something much broader. The basic ability to store information about our experiences in the world and use it to guide future behavior. The flip side of this coin is the study of memory, the information that is stored in the nervous system. The study of learning typically focuses on the rules of what gets stored in memory, whereas the study of memory focuses on how it gets stored. But these two areas of study are complementary to each other. Learning is one of the first areas to ever be studied in psychology, probably because it is such a fundamental function of nervous systems. An organism that can change its behavior to adjust to its environment is going to have a great advantage over other organisms. Aside from simply coordinating movement or behavior across the body, this seems to be a primary function of the nervous system. All creatures with nervous systems appear to be able to perform some kind of learning. It's perhaps no surprise then that physiologists like Ivan Pavlov, who were studying what we now call psychology, were studying learning. One of the key features of learning is something called the general process approach. The idea is that learning capacities follow the same rules across situations and across species, whether it's a honeybee learning to anticipate nectar in blue flowers, or a mouse learning to avoid the bell on a cat's collar, or a Japanese quail learning to anticipate mating opportunities. The rules and elements governing learning are the same. This means that what we observe about learning in one situation is likely to translate to many other situations, even if the specific behaviors and stimuli are dramatically different. If you've heard of behaviorism as a movement in psychology, perhaps from one of our other videos,
shameless plug,
it was hugely influential in establishing psychology as a discipline of the natural science, which employs the scientific method. Early behaviorists were all studying learning. Behaviorists were extremely careful about how they designed experiments and interpreted results, and this tradition in the field of learning continues through to this day. Experiments in learning are some of the most elegant and well-designed in all of the fields of science, and they're often some of the most complex. Usually this comes down to choosing the right control groups in an experiment. This does present challenges, though, to those who wish to study learning, since there's terminology and ways of thinking that you don't see in other areas of psychology, and it can seem sort of arcane if you're not used to it. Latent inhibition, US, CS, discriminative stimuli, explicitly unpaired controls, generalization decrement. Learning has a language all its own. It's unfortunate, I think, because I wish it were more accessible to outsiders who would appreciate the rigor and beauty of learning experiments. Learning can fall under a number of different categories or types. Non-associative learning refers to learning about repeated events or repeated stimuli. Examples include sensitization, where an individual learns to be more sensitive to a dangerous stimulus in the environment, and habituation, where an individual's response to a repeated stimulus goes down. Associative learning refers to classical conditioning, instrumental and operant conditioning that you may be familiar with. And there are other kinds of learning too, such as observational or social learning and skill learning. It's a broad discipline, and we are far from knowing everything there is to know. Learning is related to many other disciplines. Most modern learning researchers combine experiments on behavior with the study of underlying biological processes. For example, pharmacology and drugs, neuroanatomy, or genetics. These individuals are often placed in the discipline called behavioral neuroscience. Individuals who study the generality of learning or how it evolved by making comparisons between different species might call themselves comparative psychologists. Ethology, the branch of biology concerned with the evolution of the behavior of organisms, especially in natural environments, is also an overlapping field of study. How learning develops is also of interest, as is how the learned memory is represented in the brain, and so on. In fact, it's hard to find an area of psychology for which learning is not important. So, I hope you'll indulge me with a series of videos on this channel related to the science of learning, so you can dip your toe in the water. Feel free to subscribe to make sure you are in the loop. If you found this video useful, hit the like button, and until next time, keep thinking.